Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. In today's video we're going to be going over every single player that has top 8'd a major within 2023. This graph was made by EAZYFREEZIE. His stuff will be down below. Be sure to follow him because he just does a lot of very good work in the scene, some of the highest production stuff that we have out there. So we're going to be going over this entire list and saying, okay, what does this actually mean for a ranking? But really quickly, this list was before Major Upset was made, so we also have to add Base Mage and Chase getting their first majors, as well as Jacko getting his first major, Kurama, Riddles, Big D, Spargo, and Leo all getting another major, and Spargo actually winning a major, so none of that data is going to be on the list, but we will be considering it when we're talking about it. Starting off with Gact, who has the lowest win rate of people that have won a major win. Starting off with Gact, who does have the lowest win rate. He's been to 5 majors, is only top 8 at 1, which is still very good. And he's also the only Ness on this list, which is pretty surprising considering how many good Ness players there are right now. So Ness definitely not doing as well in 2023 as he was in 2022. Then you have Zomba, who only has one with 4 majors attended. Now Zomba hasn't been doing as well as he was last year, though he still has been doing like good. He has a 9th at Major Upset and Collision. It's not like he's super underperforming. He's just not quite getting into that top 8. You have Umeki, who is doing very well towards the end of last year, and Suinoko, who has been absolutely blowing up this year. He's become like a super relevant young, like one of the best younglings in the world, in conversation for number 1, and also the only youngling that has made a top 8 at a major this year, so pretty interesting. Then you have Salt 1, kind of the same thing as Zomba. He hasn't been getting super bad performances. It just quite hasn't been to the height of what he was getting last year. Kananabe as well has had a massive blow up this year. Again, towards the start of last year, he was starting to do very well, but getting his first top 8 here. The only other Fox on this list besides Light, so you don't have Pisarima on there, which is pretty interesting. Kananabe looking to be the best Fox right now in Japan. Cosmos as well, kind of the same thing as Salt 1 and Zomba. Cosmos is obviously amazing, though. Has come pretty close, like a handful of times. 9th at Genesis, 9th at Let's Make Big Moves. He's overall just an extremely underrated player. Cosmos is crazy. Of a Torie as well. Torie is a little bit more inconsistent, but he's still, when he hits those peaks, it is very strong. And at Umebora, he had a really strong one there. Then you have Apollo Kage, and he also has a couple 9th places. There's a lot of players on this list that have 1 or 2 9th places. Apollo Kage is going to win a major this year at some point, or at least get like a top 3, top 2. I think he's going to win. He is so crazy. And again, only snake on this list. Psych, you have Dio right there. I lied, but still, not a ton of snakes on this list considering how well snake players have been doing. But having 2 in there is still pretty good. Like, not many characters have 2 reps. You have Game & Watch with 2 reps. You only have Steve with 1 rep, though, so we'll get to that in a little second. But huge shouts to Apollo Kage. Then you have Tora, which also has 2 Samus on the list. Both him and Yara getting a top 8 at different tournaments. Really in contention, both of them, for that best Samus in the world. You also don't have Siski having a top 8 yet, but we also haven't seen Europe having a major yet, so a lot of European players on here. Like, they don't have Bloom on here, you don't have Lugi on here, you still have Gluto because he's been traveling, but that's why you're not going to see a lot of Europe. And our super big, like, first underperformance is T. Now, T was like top 10, arguably top 5 player in 2022. He had a really strong 2022 year, and his only top 8 was at Umebora SP9, where he did end up getting second, so that's a really strong run for him. But the rest of his runs have been underperformances. You know, he got 9th at Genesis, which isn't the end of the world, and then a pretty bad Meisum at top 11. So he also hasn't been to a ton of majors, only 3. I imagine he bounces back, but it's pretty interesting to see how quickly the meta is already shifting away from certain players. Now we have Niatono, who switched to Diddy Kong this year. I still thought Niatono was playing Pichu for the longest time, but I think he's been on Diddy for a little bit. Got Taipei at Tsubageki 12, which is pretty good. Now, as well as had an explosive start to the year, he's been looking very scary, super incredible player. Another Mario on this list. You have 2 Marios as well. Mystery, we talked about his level up Expo run a little bit ago, but that thing was absolutely ridiculous. So I'm sure we'll see another one of those. MK Big Boss as well. That was a really strong Let's Make Big Moves run. Meister at Collision. I'm surprised Meister only has 1, but again, hasn't been to a ton of stuff. Only has 3 tournaments, kind of the same thing as T. I imagine he gets another top 8 soon. Kurama as well. Kurama now has 2 because of Major Upset. He's just incredible. Best Mario in the world. Though now, I will say, now is a contender. Now is crazy good, but Kurama is obviously super amazing. Hito as well, getting top 8 with Bowser in the year 2023, where the heavy should be getting rocked, but you have Hito having a lot of success, and SkyJ having a lot of success. We'll get to that later as well, but huge shouts to Hito. He is crazy. You have Zachary, obviously, with his amazing pit run that everyone knows about, getting 3rd place there. Then you have Yara. We kind of already mentioned that, but the 2 Samus players from Japan have been doing very well. You have Mutace at Genesis, where he ended up getting 2nd. I also should have said this at the start. If there's a bronze thing next to their name, that means that they have gotten 3rd. Silver means they've gotten 2nd. dragon, and gold means they have one. Mudace is crazy. Mudace is a contender for top 10 player in the world right now, and he barely missed top 8 at Summit as well. He is just simply ridiculous. You have Mars at level of Expo and 9th from Mars at Genesis. The Mars's Wash era is greatly over-exaggerated. Mars does not get bad placements. He is still incredibly consistent. He only has 2 majors this year, and again, one was 9th at Genesis, one was 7th, I believe, at level of Expo. Mars is an incredible player. Beat Gluttony at KawaiiCon as well. Like, very, very good. Extremely underrated. On the other side of the list, still with one top 8 at a major, we have Lima, who is the only Bayonetta so far to top 8 a major this year. Now, of course, Bloom hasn't been to a major, so that is definitely a major contender, because I imagine when Bloom goes to a major, he definitely will get in there. But still, Lima is incredible. His camp Bayo, it is such a scary thing to play against. It's actually unreal. I think if he keeps this up, he could become like top 30, top 20 in the world right now. And I say top 30, like, seems low, but being top 30 in the game right now is equivalent to being like top 5, honestly, like 3 years ago. It's actually insane how close the level of play is. You also have Dio being the other Snake who has made top 8 at a major at Umebora SP9. Shouts to Snake players doing very well. You gotta love Snake players having success, and he's also just incredible. I'd say the best Snake right now in Japan. There's a couple really good Snakes in Japan. You have Shogun as well, just like you have Kronos and MVD in America. Now you have Big D, who now has 2 major top 8s because he got 3rd at Major Upset. Big D has gotten 3rd at 3 majors within the span of like 4 months, because you have Main Stage as well, which isn't on this list because it was in 2022, but still incredibly impressive. Really amazing player with Ice Climbers. Again, I don't know how he does it. He wins the unwinnable matchups that he shouldn't be able to do. It's pretty crazy. And then you have 4 players left, all with 100% at majors. You have Shiny Mark, Proto Bonham, Karage, and Jogabu, the 2 Falcon players getting top 8 at the same major, which is pretty funny. So they're neck and neck for the best Falcon in the world right now. Also, only Japan has Falcon on the list despite Fatality. I guess Fatality hasn't been going to as much stuff lately, and then Sean as well. But if they go to more stuff, I imagine they can't get on there. But shout out to Jogabu and Karage. Really interesting to see who pulls ahead here. You have Proto, who makes sense that he is 100%. He's only been to 1 major, and he top 8'd it because he's crazy. Kind of the same thing as Shiny Mark. If we just see more Shiny Mark, it is 100% that he's going to be getting into more top 8s. He's extremely talented, best Pikachu in the world right now, and just an amazing player overall. On to people with 2 major top 8s, starting off with Shutone, who is 2 for 4, which isn't great for him, especially considering last year. I'm pretty sure he didn't miss a single top 8, or if he did, it was only 1. And right now he has a 50%, which is not amazing, but he still has a 3rd place at Subageki 13. He's not doing terribly. He had a pretty good Umebora as well, but to a player of his standard that was known for his consistency, it's a little bit of a rough start to the year, but again, he only has 4 majors. I'm sure he bounces back pretty quick, and sometimes age is a character that you just don't have great tournaments. Sometimes you just get edge guarded super, super hard, because people are able to play the win conditions super well. So a little bit unlucky for Shutone, but I imagine he bounces back. Then you have Riddles and Leo, who both did get top 8 at Major Upset, but they also both have major wins. Leo at Genesis, Riddles at Collision, and they both also top 8'd Let's Make Big Moves. For Riddles, this is pretty typical. He's been doing good this year. You know, he has a 7th at Let's Make Big Moves, that big Collision win, and a 3rd place at Major Upset. He missed Genesis. That was a little bit of a rough performance, and then a 9th place at Ultimate Summit. So he's still doing very well. Now for Leo, it's a little bit weird, because he still won the biggest event of the year, but for someone that is known for being Mr. Consistent, he doesn't like miss top 8 ever. This is pretty bad, all things considered. He's at a 60% right now. It's not the end of the world, but it's definitely not like uncontested go to the game stats like it used to be for a very long time. So he's still doing fine. I mean, he still has 60%. He's still won the biggest event of the year, but it's just not what we're used to seeing. Then you have Mia as well, who has won 2 majors and Maizuma top 11 and Subageki 13, and severely underperformed at, I believe it was Kagaribi and then Umebora. He got like only 13th or something. Not amazing, not the end of the world. Kameme as well, Subageki 13. He's been doing very well. Kameme is just such a consistent threat. I'm someone that definitely snuck up on me. Has been doing incredible this year. He has 2 top 8s with Sheik, the only Sheik to do it as well. You have to consider, though, Mr. R, no majors in Europe so far, so that's probably a reason that you don't have Mr. R on this list, as well as Mr. R not being able to travel, but I think he's going to Battle BC, which should be a very hype time. Speaking of going to Battle BC, though, you have Yoshidora with 2 top 8s, a 3rd at, I believe his 3rd was at Umebora SP9. Yoshidora is crazy. He's only been to 3 events as well, and he has a 66.67%, as well as everyone above him having that, which is, again, amazing overall. You have SkyJ with 66.7%. SkyJ has a more likely chance, at least based off this list, to make a top 8 than MK Leo does, even with the major upset stats. That is ridiculous. It just shows how consistent SkyJ is. He is unreal. Same thing with Ken. Ken's been very consistent. You're super impressed by him, and Osimo as well. All these guys having 2nd place at a major. SkyJ at Collision, Ken at Maizuma, and Osimo at Kagaribi, taking a set off Aqua as well, who, as you can see, has been doing very well. Everyone within the 2 category is still doing incredibly impressive. There are some players that you expect to be a little bit higher, but again, it is the start of the year, and no one here has more than like 4 majors, so it isn't too big of a sample size. Up next, we have Spargo with actually an 80% now because he does have that big win at Major Upset, so now he's 4 for 5. He did still miss top 8 at Summit. That was a rough performance from him, but it's also really his only rough performance. Every other tournament he's gone to, he's gotten top 8, and he's gotten a bunch of good wins along the way. Spargo is just crazy, in contention for number 1 in the world. Pretty much now, everyone who's in contention for number 1 in the world has a major win. I'd say there's only like 4 people that everyone's actually thinking of, but there's a couple names that you could throw in there that wouldn't be honestly that uncanny. We'll kind of go over that at the end of the video, but now Spargo has that nice major win, which is good for him. You have Light as well with a major win at Level Up Expo, only missing top 8 at Collision. Again, Spargo and Light are just incredibly consistent players, and they've only missed 1 major win, so it kind of seems like a big sample size. Same thing, honestly, like going down the list with like Leo and Riddles. It's like, oh, they only have a 50%, but they've only been to 4 majors. You know, Light and Spargo, they only have a 75%, which last year for them wasn't good. Last year, Spargo had 100% at major top 8s. Now he's missed only 1 major, so he's down to 80%. It isn't the end of the world. It's just kind of showing that the competition has caught up and it's gotten way harder to be consistent. And we have our final 4 of Gluttony, Sonics, Tweak, and Aquila, and none of these guys have missed a top 8. That is insane this year. Again, the sample size is still fairly small, but it's incredibly impressive. Gluttony, who's 3 for 3 at Genesis, Let's Make Big Moves, as well as Ultimate Summit. Again, Europe has not had any majors this year, as well as Gluttony being the only player in here to not have a top 3. Still, of course, doing incredibly well. Again, 100% is crazy hard to get. You have Sonics, who's known for his consistency at this point. He has a 3rd place at Let's Make Big Moves, as well as a 3rd place at Level Up Expo. Doesn't have a Grand Finals yet, but I feel like the second he gets into Grand Finals, he's honestly probably going to win it, because of all the players in the world that are in contention for number 1, I'd say Sonics is the only one that could be number 1 that doesn't have a major win yet, because he is just crazy, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then you have, of course, this big 2 of Aquila and Tweak, who both have 5 majors and both have major wins. These guys are insane. I think Aquila has 3 major wins already this year. He is ridiculous, such a talented player. Same thing with Tweak, incredibly consistent, always getting top 8s. These are the people that you have to look out for right now. If you don't see them in top 8, it's something went wrong. And I've been alluding to it a lot in this video, but who actually is the best player in the world? And the answer is, I don't know. You have your 4 horsemen here of Aquila, Tweak, Leo, and Spargo. You have Aquila and Tweak who are at the peak of consistency. These guys do not have bad performances. Then you have Spargo, who's right behind that. He's a little bit more inconsistent, but has some higher highs, you could argue. And then Leo, the most inconsistent of the 4, which is pretty crazy to say, but he does definitely have the highest peak. So it really does depend what you value. I'm curious what you guys think who the best is. It also depends on how far your timeline goes back. If you think only the last month matters, then maybe you'll have it as Aquila, maybe you'll have it as Tweak. If you think the last 6 months matters, maybe you'll have it as Leo. It really does depend what you value, all that kind of good stuff. And then this is kind of like what your top 20 would be. Maybe this is a couple players that could be in here, like Sonics, Light, Riddles, Proto, Mia, Gluto, Big D, Yoshidora, T, Shutone, Mudace, AK, Osimo, Ken, SkyJ, Kurama, and there's players like Bloom that we didn't talk about, Zachary. There's so many players that could be on this list that you could add. I'm curious who you guys have in here, but I thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Huge shout out to EAZYFREEZIE for making this. Their stuff will be down below. Meister as well. Forgot to add Meister that missed. And Cosmos, low-key too. Cosmos is kind of crazy. Salt1. DeBuzz as well. We haven't had a major top 8 from DeBuzz. Gonna get sidetracked here because there's so many amazing players that just haven't had the performances this year because the competition has been so close. Curious you guys think what your top 20 is. Just leave it down below. Sport's been absolutely unreal lately. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.